We're going to record this so we have it. So welcome everybody to Self-Care Senorita. We're here with Still Smiling, and this is the kickoff of our new series called La Comunidad, which translates from Spanish to community. And this series will be about a collective conversation on some of the hard topics that we have a hard time maybe discussing, or we just don't have access to information. And so that's what we're going to do today. I'm here with Julius Boatwright, who is the founder and an executive director of Still Smiling. Still Smiling was started, about 5 years ago, Julius?
Yeah, almost 5 years now.
Yeah, so 5 years ago, I remember being there in Arnold's Tea on the north side, and you were talking about this idea of getting this up and going, and to be able to see, where it is and all the awards and accolades that you rightfully have received because you've been doing work in communities that support mental health resources and access and things like that. So it's really important. So I thank you for the work that you do. And the reason why we're doing this particular session today is that a few weeks ago, we lost a really good friend of ours, Kevin Miller, to some mental health issues. And the conversation at the funeral with a lot of us, which many of us are in our mid-30s, was, we didn't know anything was wrong. What could we have done? And then there was guilt and there was worry, but then it was also kind of looking at each other and kind of saying, we don't want anyone else to be next. We don't want someone who we love and who we care about to be next because they felt alone or just in despair or were dealing with whatever else was going on. And so I felt like I have this platform. We could really create some really insightful conversations on ways that we can access mental health resources. If you have a partner, a brother, a husband, or a colleague, ways that you can support a man's mental health just because of the lack of access, or maybe still kind of this old feeling of men don't need to talk about their feelings, they don't need to go to therapy or those things. So just give us a little bit of background on all the services that Still Smiling offers.
Yeah, so first I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. And I think anytime this conversation can happen, I don't take it lightly. And I think more people need to be talking about it. I'm getting a little bit of an echo, so I don't know if maybe we could mute if we're talking. Anytime we can have these conversations is just near and dear to my heart, because more people, more just people in general, specifically black and brown folks, need to be having these conversations. So I'm always grateful to just be a part of them. So just a real quick history, like Tori mentioned about Still Smiling. We started 4.5 years ago. We're approaching that 5-year mark. And our mission is to bridge the gap between Black people and mental health support through education, advocacy, and awareness. Now, while we focus our efforts in the Black community, we're not exclusionary. We know mental health does not discriminate. And as I just mentioned, it impacts Black and brown people, more than it does our white counterparts. So it's important to acknowledge that and really pay attention to those disparities within the mental health care system. So in terms of our programming, we have 3 specific programs that we offer. So we have what's called Beams to Bridges. It's a Black mental health workforce development program. So the goal of that is just to equip folks in the community with skills and competencies to be community mental health workers. So Tori, like this situation that you just mentioned with your dear friend, we want to equip folks with tools and language and resources to be able to have these conversations with their peers, with their neighbors, and to be able to potentially triage some of these situations and try to mitigate some of these challenging emotions and mental health situations that our friends and neighbors go through, knowingly and unknowingly. So that's the purpose of our Beams to Bridges program. We also have what's called a digital mental health and healing series. So we have conversations with mental health and wellness practitioners, with yogis, with mindfulness professionals, and we share those videos out on our social media and digital platforms for free, just for people to use. Now that we're in the pandemic, a lot of people are working from home and spending a lot more time at home with their loved ones. So we just wanted to give people an opportunity to participate in some sort of wellness activity. And Tori, I know you're using your platform to do some of those videos and offering those activities as well. And then we have something that we kind of just started to do, we really started to make a lot of referrals. So we have more people reaching out to us, particularly right now with all the racial trauma and cultural challenges that are happening all across the globe. So we have a lot of people reaching out to us saying, not only do I want a therapist and I need mental health services, but I want somebody who can identify with my cultural experiences and who can help to bridge that gap to healing quicker, as opposed to me having to really educate them on all these cultural nuances. They can kind of meet me halfway because there's some sort of similarities in our experiences. So those are really the three key programs that we focus on. I would say 70% of our time goes toward Beams to Bridges, the workforce development program, and then the other 30% goes toward the digital mental health wellness and the referral-based program. Hey, Tori, you're on mute.
Sorry, muted myself. Didn't want you to get the kickback from me, but it's great that people understand that there are some grassroots, and by grassroots I mean those that are not funded by hospitals or entities like that, like community kind of healthcare, mental health resources, and things like that. So I want us to move into the conversation of ways that we can support men's mental health. And so how do we start the conversation with our loved ones to say, hey, like, I think maybe you need to talk to a doctor or a therapist, or, I'm worried because some things are off. Maybe they've dealt with trauma, maybe abuse, sexual abuse, or whatever the case may be. And they've just never processed or worked on it, and it's just kind of this trickle down effect. So how do we kind of create that conversation with the men in our lives, whether it's brother to brother or husband to wife or whatever the case may be, to make sure that the people that we love can get the resources they need?
Great question. I think it starts with giving men an opportunity to be vulnerable. I am giving men and boys an opportunity to be vulnerable. I think it starts when boys are young, and really not continuing to perpetuate this myth that we always have to man up, or the boys will be boys and we have to be tough, because what that does is it sort of subconsciously plants this seed of, I always have to be tough. I always have to keep it together. I can never show any sign of weakness. And what that does is it just creates so much stress and so much anxiety and tension inside of us. And we start to live up to those expectations. We say, you know what? I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm not going to show my soft side or my weaknesses. And that results in men dying by suicide at 3 to 4 more times than women die by suicide. Men just not feeling like we have those avenues and those opportunities to be open, because with other men, now we have to be tough and we have to be strong in that regard too. So I think just really encouraging that vulnerability. And a stat I have here, men are less likely to receive mental health treatment in comparison to women too. So really being acknowledging that fact and thinking of ways we can help to reduce the stigma. So not just for men, but just in general, right? So if as a woman you're having a conversation with your son, with your brother, with your uncle, or just a male friend that you have, how can you talk about mental health with him in a way that helps to reduce that stigma and helps him recognize that, okay, he's not weak or he's not less than as a man, if he shows that vulnerability, or if he shows that, you know what, I'm gentle. I'll always try to use words whenever I'm mentoring young men, like gentle, vulnerable, even soft, and trying to really give that a new meaning. So it's something that they can own, and really finding value in that vulnerability. I'm a huge fan. I don't know if anyone on this chat knows about Brene Brown. She's a social worker. She's a pretty well-known social worker. She has like a Netflix special. She's a writer as well. And she researches shame and guilt. Like, those are the two big areas that she researches. And anytime we shame or guilt people into feeling something or feeling like they need to behave a certain way, that's not sustainable. So really looking at, and she also talks about vulnerability as courage. So being able to really say, you know what, my vulnerability is a strength, and it's something that I'm going to identify and acknowledge and celebrate as a strength.
Right. So I've read Brene Brown, and I'm a huge fan of her. I think that her work is phenomenal. The vulnerability as courage was paramount in my work that I did as a diversity and inclusion educator, to allow people to feel, if we were going to move towards healing work, we had to be vulnerable first. So we had to share trauma and pain and worry and prejudice and bias to be able to move past that, to create that understanding, that inclusivity, and that diversity in understanding. Um, so if I want to have a conversation, and I have a 2.5-year-old little boy, and he happens to be a brown boy. So how do I, and at what age do I start to begin to make sure that my son has mental health strength moving forward? So, using the keyword that you mentioned, like gentle and soft, and like, allowing him to show affection and be affectionate. But as he gets older, as we start to have children that move into elementary school and middle school, and especially into high school, how do we create that sense that they can remain strong through their mental health? Oop, you're muted.
We keep playing the mute game. I was going to say, I think you're already doing that. You're modeling a lot. Kids and young, our kiddos do as they see more than they do as we tell them to do. About modeling those kind of behaviors for B to C, right? So for him to be able to see you honoring your own mental health and doing the things that you need to do to like calm yourself down, or to help him calm down whenever he feels himself getting anxious. He's going to adopt those principles and those practices, and he's already picking up on them. I mean, you know that more than I do as his mother. You see that he's probably starting to say certain things that you say. He's probably starting to do certain things that you do. So I have to mention Brother Leon Ford. You know Leon Ford really well. I was talking to him one day, and he was like, I meditate with my son every day. And I was like, what is that like? He's like, now it's to the point where if I don't get up and I say, hey, son, let's meditate, his son is like, hey, daddy, let's meditate. So now he's ingrained that into his son's mindset. And I don't think Leon's son he may be in like, I don't know, first grade, second. I mean, he's 7 years old. He's young. I mean, he's young, right? So for like at 7 years old, if you would have asked me about like meditation or mental health, I would have been like, what? Like, what are you talking about? So at 7 years old, his son knows that, and he's practicing his breathing, and he's aware. He has this heightened awareness of his own emotions and how to, not just what he's feeling or thinking, but how to regulate it, right? So the simple fact that, again, you're modeling that for B to be able to see, he's like, oh, like, I not only like, I feel something happening, or I think this, but now I can do this, right? I can sit down, or whatever mindfulness for different kiddos looks like. I'm not I won't pretend to be a child psychologist or a child expert, but again, just kind of adopting what works for you and for Braxton, and really adopting that with the same kind of principles. But it starts with you modeling it, and you're already doing an excellent job of that.
We do that after school. When he gets in from daycare, he really needs a few moments just to himself. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's a half an hour, but he either plays with his toys, or that's when he wants to get his iPad, or he just kind of like walks around or plays in the yard. But there's really little to no interaction with me. He wants his drink and a snack. And it's kind of his decompression from the day. He's been in daycare all day. It's loud, it's noisy, they're programmed. So he comes home and it's just kind of like, And I realized I'm the same way as an adult. Even before I modeled it to him, I used to come in and be like, I can't do anything for half an hour. Like, let me drink some water. Let me sit down. Like, let me just like Facebook scroll, because I need to like remove pieces, like decompress myself to get into that next piece. And so I think you hit something that was really important for us as a community, is that our own capability and capacity to handle our own mental health, our frustrations and our anxiety, modeled properly to our children, right? Some people have grown up where they saw their fathers punch walls, or get mad, yell and scream, and then leave. They were avoiders, right? Well, we're not going to handle that. Or they just shut down. But when we start to engage our young men and say, hey, like, tell me, like, why are you upset? Like, why are you mad? And so we're working on understanding our emotions with Braxton. Again, he's 2.5. So do you feel sad? And then we do a sad face. Do you feel angry? And then an angry face. Are you happy? Are you excited? Are you frustrated? And there's days where he's like, yes, mommy. And then we talk about it and we figure out why he's frustrated. And just in that simple explanation and trying to prompt him on those pieces, I've noticed a dramatic decrease in the amount of temper tantrums or fits that he's throwing for his age, because he now has vocabulary tied to how he feels. So I think that that doesn't change for an adult man, right? We still need to find the vocabulary of, I'm upset. In my healing work, there's this concept of the dad gets yelled at by the boss. He comes home, he yells at the wife. The wife then yells at the son. The son then yells at the sister and punches her in the arm. And then the sister goes over and kicks the dog. The dog pees on the floor. Is it the dog's fault that he peed on the floor, or was it a chain of people's reactions and actions to cause the dog to pee on the floor? And so it's kind of like that butterfly effect. We often think one trauma causes another trauma. And when we can create that interjector, that interceptor, we've literally stopped it from those other generations or those other people having to deal with that pain. And I think that that's really important for many of us to understand, is that it's never too late to go to therapy. It's never too late to talk about our feelings. It's never too late to say, I'm struggling, whether it's as a man or a female or non-binary, it doesn't matter, to find the language to say, you know what, I'm not okay. And there has been a spike in that with COVID. I'm sure you've seen that, of people that are anxious and out of work or depressed. So people who may have never had mental health worries now have that because of this additional stress and anxiety. And for many of us, we're also in that sandwich generation, right? We're taking care of our kids and our parents at the same time, plus working. We feel like for ourselves, we don't have enough time. And that's kind of where the self-care senorita comes into. But what I wanted to ask is, in what ways can we start at home, simple conversation with our family members to say, hey, like, how can I help you? What can we say to start to see if someone just needs to talk, or if they might need additional support services to help them?
You froze for us. Is Tori still with us?
Sorry.
There she is.
Sorry about that.
You're back.
Went wonky.
Sure.
So did you hear me ask the question of how we can continue our conversation with our family members at home?
Yeah, so this is something that I've been thinking a lot about lately. So two things to this conversational dynamic, because we've all been spending a ton of time at home with our loved ones. If we're those of us or a few things. One, if I am having a conversation with my wife and I say, before I go in to just dump everything onto her, I need to be able to know or to ask permission, right? Because I think a lot of times when you get anxious, especially now in the middle of a global pandemic with all the racial and cultural trauma, because we have limited social interaction. We're not able to see people, our loved ones, as much as we were accustomed to seeing them. We're not able to get that affection and that intimacy that we've, or at least the level of affection and intimacy that we've yearned for and become accustomed to. So now it's like, hey, if I have a person near me, I'm going to offload to them. And now more than ever, I try to be mindful of asking myself, is my wife in a position to be able to handle or to hold what I'm gonna offload to her? So, and I actually shouldn't be the one answering that question. Like, I need to ask her that question of, sort of provide some context. Hey, I'm struggling right now. I'm dealing with some things related to work or my own anxiety or stress, and I really want to have a conversation with you. Are you in a position where you're able to receive what I'm saying? And she may say, I hear you, but I'm not in a position to listen right now because I got to get this report out to my team, in an hour, or I just finished with work and my brain is mush, or I'm also dealing with a lot of things that I still need to process. So in trying to help you process, then it's going to drain the 50% that's left in my cup. So I always try to ask, not only for permission, but also to see if she's willing and able to receive what I'm going to give to her. And also, on the flip side of that coin, right? If she or someone else is asking me, like, or if I'm saying, hey, I'm here to help somebody, and then somebody's like, okay, hey, I'm dealing with all this stuff, and they dump everything on me. Now if I opened up that line to help, I got to be equipped to help them, because you open up that line, and now with people dealing with so much stress in them the way that they need you to show up. So a thing that's super, super important is that when we let people know that, hey, we're there to listen to them, we also have to let people know at what level we're able to support them. Because when you open that door, people will think, all right, I'm just going to dump everything out. And if they dump everything out and pour all their trauma on you and into your lap, and you don't have the energy, the capacity, or the skills to be able to support them, you can actually cause more harm than you do support. So there are instances where help and spiritual capacity to make space for people when they're in need of support. And right now, in the age of the pandemic, in the age of so much uncertainty and anxiety, making space for people to just be whatever it is that they are in that moment, whatever emotion they're experiencing. Because right now, some folks we're all over the spectrum. We're anxious, we're stressed, we're depressed, we're high, we're low, we're to the right, we're to the left, we're going all the way around the mental, emotional, and spiritual spectrum. And we I don't think it's wise for us to be telling people now how they should or shouldn't be feeling, because no one knows what in the world is going on right now. We're all taking it. I mean, just what, 2 hours ago, we just got new recommendations or restrictions that came down from the governor and the county. It's like, just when you think you got it figured out and you got your sense of normalcy, it's like, wait a minute, 5 more things are going to change. So like, imagine what that does to someone's mental and emotional meter. So how can I sum that up? Really giving people like extended grace in this time to just feel the whole spectrum of their feelings. I know that we've got these like accordion style feelings right now. We're all just back and forth, and protect our own energy while we're making space for other people to feel those things.
I think you're spot on with that. I think with the fluctuation of, we don't know what's going on with schools. We just got this new mandate from Governor Wolf, less than 25 people, restaurants are closed, bars are closed. Everyone's quick to say, well, this is the end of small businesses. And there are difficulties. As someone who runs a small business, just like you, every time a new order comes down, it's just kind of like, I have to pivot. We're constantly pivoting in today. And I know that not everybody's industry can do that. But that does add an additional factor into, I think, people's mental health. The last thing I just wanted to touch on, and then we'll wrap up, is that I want people to understand that it's okay to seek out therapy, whether that's finding someone because you feel anxious, or finding someone. Okay,